So this will be part 18 of our complete application in ASP.NET C# and SQLite step by step with no coding or with very little coding. And today we are going to be doing update in our database connection so that we can store user credentials in our database. Now this is interesting because I'm going to show you how it works. Again, if you are joining for the first time, please subscribe and also leave me a comment if you have any challenges whatsoever following this lesson. And if you want to support me, that's fine. You can buy me a coffee or support me on Patreon or PayPal. And then this kind of motivates me to keep doing this. We will have to allow the alt context to use the existing database connection. Remember, I told you that the context helps your application to communicate with a database. So now we have a context for the authentication, and it's called alt context. If you go to your application and go to areas, you have data, you have the alt context right here. It's different from the other context we have. So this alt context is using a different database connection. I'm going to show you. We're going to change the connection so that it's going to use the same database connection because we don't want it creating a new database. We simply want it to create new tables on existing database. So let's follow the procedure. We have to open the identity hosting startup, the CS file, and change the name of the connection string to hospital connection string. Now, what are we talking about? We are going to open this one and change this alt context connection to hospital connection. Why? Because if you look at the app settings here, you have now two connections. The one existing connection is a hospital connection string, and that's the one we are going to be using. So I'm going to replace this alt connection here with hospital connection string. And we now have to delete from the app settings of JSON the alt context connection. So I'm going to app settings, I'm going to delete this second connection that was created. In this way, we'll only use one single connection for our data storage. Okay, that's fine. Now we are not done yet. We would like that the database tables for user to be created for us. Remember, we talked about migration. Migration, in this way, the tables will be created for you because we are going to be using entity framework. We will also want to have some initial user database data added to the database. Sorry for the typo on my website. Okay, so first open the package manager console and add a migration. I'm going to call this migration alt data. This migration is simply going to help us generate all the tables we need for authentication, in addition to the tables we already have. So if I go to package manager console, I'm going to simply add a new migration. I'm going to call it alt data. So I'm going to type add migration alt data. That's the name of the migration, and it's going to use a context because this is now a new context but the same database connection. The context is going to be alt context, which is actually this context here. Okay, so now you don't worry about the codes, you just forget about it, just understand the procedure I'm following. So this code is right here, so I'm going to add this migration, and let's see if it adds the migration. I'm going to hit on the enter key. Build succeeded and the migration was added. All right. How do I know? If I go to the migrations folder, we have a new migration called alt, in a folder called alt, and we have the name to be alt data. And if you look at this alt data, you see that it contains codes for creating the tables in the database. For instance, ASP.NET Roles is creating a table, have ID name, and it's creating another table and other tables necessary. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is to update the database using this context so that it can generate these tables for us. So I'm going to simply update the database by saying update database. Context should be alt context like this, and I'm going to run this code. We'll now look at the database to see if it generated the tables we need. So if I go to Server Explorer, so a couple seconds. If I go to Hospital DB and go to tables, and now you can see that we have additional tables. For instance, ASP.NET Roles, ASP.NET Users, which is this is ASP.NET Users is going to be storing the user credentials. So if you want, you can just look at the columns. You have username, you have email, you have password. And later we're going to modify these or customize to add additional fields of first name and last name. So at this point, to enable migration at startup, you need to adjust the web host extension so that it can enable migration at startup. And let's just do it. So I'm going to copy this code and add it to the web host extension. So I'm going to come here to my web host extension. Remember, I told you that web host extension helps you to run certain codes when the application starts up. So let's see. So I'm going to come here. So this way, I'm going to put this code here. So I'm going to just give me a second. Okay. So the code will be after the services. So it's going to be somewhere here. So I'm going to just delete this one. Okay, because you have to run this code after the services has been created. Okay, so at this point, when the application runs at startup, the migration is going to run as well. So at this point, we've completed setting up all our tables for the identity or for authentication and authorization. And the next part, which I'm going to be doing in the next part, we are now going to do some customization to add username and last name. So add first name and last name field, that we are going to do in the next part. So I'm going to stop here. I'd like to thank you for viewing. Please subscribe to my channel. Support me by buying me a coffee on Patreon or PayPal or in any other way. Try to reach out to me if you have any challenges. And remember, I'm Kind on the Tech Pro and I'm always there for you.